And welcome back, everybody, to the 13th edition of Around the Bases with Bubba and Mo. I am Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at BDintric. Check us out on Twitter at Around Bases Pod. Before we get blowing and going with a lot of news this week, my co-host, Mo, you can find him on Twitter at Boston_Mo. Mo, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing well to start at a nice Lindor dong to start the night in cash. So that was pretty fun. But other than that, ready to get going.
Yeah, we got 4 solo home runs to start off our night. It's pretty entertaining. Conforto just doesn't stop. But yeah, lots of news this week. We'll kick it off. We had a couple scuffles. One was, we tweeted out the video of the Joey Bats bat flip, and then he takes his sweet time going around the bases. Teheran plunks him the next day. You know, everyone's getting excited. Same time, Freeman's getting nailed, fractures his wrist. The Braves Jays series has a lot of back and forth. What are your thoughts on everything that just took place in that whole deal?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate to see the Freddie Freeman news. I mean, I've been all over that guy. I wish I could have got him in fantasy leagues. Unfortunately, most of mine are keeper and dynasty, so I didn't really have the chance to get him. That was really unfortunate. And then the whole Joey Bats thing. I mean, even he knew he kind of screwed it up once he hit the plate with Suzuki, and they were kind of going at each other. I mean, Joey Bats is who he is. He's gonna bat flip. Even when he's down 8-3 like he was in that game, it didn't really matter at that point. Obviously, Eric O'Flaherty saying, I thought, you got punched or whatever he said after the game. I mean, guy, you got like a 6 ERA the last 2 years, so you can't really be saying much. Get the guy out if you really don't want him to do it. I think Joey Bats sometimes is an idiot, but at the same time, I've been okay with the flipping of the bats thing. Let's have some more fun in this league, and obviously by the tweet on our handle. I mean, it got a lot of play with some of the commentary if people had looked at all the quotes and the replies to it. So that was pretty funny. The Teheran thing the next day, I mean, he did it the right way. He hit him in the hip. No harm, no foul. Joey Bats went to first base. Granted, a lot of people were like, why is he doing it? Why is he doing it? And he gave up 3 runs and they got killed that game. So I guess it's to the point where you have to back up your player if they think that they hurt their best player. So it is what it is there, and they ended up losing that game because of it. But I have no problem with Joey Bats for the most part.
Neither do I. I think Joey Bats is a lot of fun if you really think about it. Remember during the World Baseball Classic, everybody got pissed off at Kinsler for saying, play baseball the right way. Well, this is the thing people wanted to see was Joey Bats having fun, bat flipping and this and that. And, sure, he probably shouldn't have said too much to the guys at home or this, that, or the other, but have a little fun with it, run around the bases. I don't see the big deal. I think a lot of it came down to Atlanta was pissed off because the 2 games in Toronto, they got plunked all over the place, and then it just got worse at home.
Exactly, yeah.
It just compiled so much, but it's just a common trend we've been seeing, retaliation, as they like to say, the unwritten rules of baseball.
Yeah, and another scuffle, I brought this up today. You can kind of comment on it if you have one real quick. I mean, I'll go over it, but the Marlins and Dodgers kind of got into a little bit of a bench clearing issue. And just to give a cliff notes here, Ramos hit Brett Eibner in the 8th, and then stripling through behind Stan in the 9th. That's when the bench is cleared. And the reason why Mattingly had them hit Eibner is because Corey Seager swung at a 3-0 pitch up 5-0 in the 7th. 5-0. He got mad at a 3-0 pitch. It's got to be Don Mattingly. They're 15-28. Stop this, Don Mattingly. This is you hate. I mean, Mattingly's not the Dodgers manager anymore, but he was the Dodgers manager. I mean, you have a quick take on this one?
Yeah, it's funny because after you mentioned it to me, I was listening to another podcast, and they had a Marlins beat writer or something call in for like 10 minutes. and they kind of talked about it. So that's kind of how I learned about it more. And it was really interesting because even he said he hopes that Mattingly was just grasping at straws on the comment, because it was immediately after the game, things were heated, and he says Mattingly a lot of the times will just say stuff like that to deflect from how bad his team is playing.
Yeah.
So, because I guess like even the next day, like Mattingly on like a clear head, not heat of the moment, said no, it had nothing to do with that. Blah 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 blah. Because like you said, 7th inning, you still got 2 more at bats, and you got guys like Stanton and Ozuna and Yelich that could all go ding dong in a heartbeat. It's far from over. So this is baseball. It's like you're a Patriots fan. How many times have you seen Bill Belichick go, "Stop me"? Like, it's that simple. I think it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. And it leads to the bigger problem that the Marlins have right now. When you have your big boy, Giancarlo Stanton, coming out and basically saying, I have no idea what we're doing. This is pathetic. I don't even want to be here right now. That's not good. Not good when you're trying to sell a team. You're trying to keep the core in place. So many factors involved. Just not good in Miami right now. And, they've lost, it's almost like 20 out of 25 or something. It's bad baseball, really. And we said in the preseason that their pitching would be suspect, which, it has been, but their offense has been dreadful.
Really bad. And it's got to be tough down there with the ownership issue with Laurier's kind of screwing them. They need that to be rectified fast.
Well, I got a question for you before we go on to the next section. Their farm system is so bad. Do you see them it's not on the sheet now. We could just preface it now and talk about it next week. I didn't originally think of them as potential sellers with guys like Stanton and the bigger names. Do you think that's actually an option?
No, I think it's more Ozuna, if anyone. I don't think they would trade. That would probably be franchise suicide, especially with ownership. I mean, they already lost, again, tragic, accident with Fernandez.
It's what the Marlins do, though.
It's what Jeffrey Laurier does.
And he's still in control.
He is in control, but there's got to be some back channels there that says, hey, you go and blow this thing up now, we're not going to buy this team, and then you're going to be stuck with them, and you can't build your family trust because you're 70-something years old. So I don't think you'll see many moves, if any, or at least big moves from the Marlins. And, again, not many big moves they can make.
And that's kind of the way I saw it originally. That's why they never really came on my radar or anything like that. Like I'm telling you, I listened to this beat writer, and he's there every day with these guys, and he started just throwing out all these guys that were potential trade options, and that his theory was the farm system's so bad that new ownership will want some, because they already basically have to rebuild, like the tragic death of Jose Fernandez. Things aren't going well right now. The rebuild has to happen one way or another. He says the new owners might want an actual farm system to rebuild with. So Stanton, who's under club control for so long, and when he signed that 13-year deal, we thought it was huge, but in reality, he's not getting paid anything compared to a lot of guys. He's actually like a very nice, sweet deal for a long time. Could bring a big haul. That's all. I didn't even think about it until the guy broke it down. I was like, it's a long shot, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure, but better draft well in a couple weeks, and you better sign some international free agents. The folks from the Dominican and everywhere down there right south of them would love to stay in Miami. It's a safe landing spot for them. On to the next topic. Luis Robert signs with the White Sox. Blind squirrel for your guy, Mr. Mo here. It was kind of just the educated guess with Abreu there and Moncada there now, and just how much money they have in terms of rebuilding this team. I guess the question to you is, will he? It's a tough answer right now, but this helps them rebuild now. Will he be Yoan Moncada, who still we don't know will be good in the MLB but looks good, or my guy Rusney Castillo? I mean, what do you think about, and what have you read about Luis Robert?
That is the $1 million question, because everything you see about the kid, he's 19 years old. First off, they signed with a $25 to $30 million deal. I haven't seen the actual final print, but heard it's around 25, which sounds great. But due to the penalty they're going to face, it doubles. Basically, they're going to pay $50 million for this deal. So he better be good, for one. For two, most people are saying he's like Cespedes when he came out of Cuba. Remember, that whole deal was insanity. So they're basically saying right now he sits right next to Moncada as the best Cuban player. But we all said that about Rusney Castillo when he came up. So it reminds me of like when you got the Japanese players, how many of those have actually panned out the way we'd expect? I think the kid looks great. He's basically played against opponents that have always been years ahead of him, like at least 2-3 years for the most part. And he's just run through those organizations. He's looked phenomenal. I am by far a professional scout, but everything you possibly read on the guy, it is just great. Stats for you. He had 314, his slashing at 314, 409, 470, or 467 in a 192 game career in the Cuban National League. Remember, he's 19 years old. Like all the reports, you know, awesome bat speed, tons of power, good, you know, base pass speed. He's got the 5 tools. If you can combine him with Moncada and everything else they got going in that pitching staff, Huta, that is amazing. But I don't know. What do you think?
They're building for sure. I mean, it's tough to think of anything. The only thing I've read is from, you know, Baseball Prospectus, Ben Badler, whatever. It's probably Badler. The only thing that they're worried about is his tendency to swing and miss a lot. Gets pull happy. He's going to be, if he can take the ball to right center and to all fields, he's going to be a tremendous player. Like I said, I got too much, I got too many problems right now with us paying Rusney Castillo down in Pawtucket. He was just a disaster signing, and I feel like I probably should have went back and looked at the scouting report. I feel like the scouting report was like the same thing for Rusney, except he didn't play for like a full year, because that's when Cuba you had to like escape. You literally had to Yasiel Puig your way out of Cuba. So and Rusney was older too. So this kid can come here at 19 and develop in America, you know, start in single A and move his way up. So that's a plus for them.
No, and that's a great point, because he basically is the first one that's coming up with like no hurdles. Like Jose Fernandez got here, but it was his 3rd or 4th attempt, and he was young, which was nice. But most of these people, like you said with Castillo, they're older, so you're already missing some of those years. You can develop them. You don't have to, you know, feel as rushed to get the most out of them. But if these reports are accurate, they're saying, you know, everything gets signed and finalized and all the good stuff. He could head to like extended spring training and get some looks there. Then he could head to the Arizona Fall League, which would be outstanding to see him against the other top prospects. He could go to like a Dominican Summer League and get some work in. Most are thinking he'll start in Double-A next year if all goes according to plan. And if he's as good as he's supposed to be, you might see him come next September. I don't think they'll rush him that fast, but that's how good people think this kid is.
Yeah, no need to rush him. They're aiming for 2019 anyway.
That's the thing. It's 2019, 2020 with those guys. So, like, if they're in no hurry to rush Moncada up there right now, why would they rush this kid up there, basically? The only reason why, and it's a valid point, and we've mentioned it in other podcasts with other teams, while you have Melky Cabrera, while you have Jose Abreu and those veterans, it's not a bad move to have these kids up there to struggle in the bigs with these veteran leaders, especially, you know, Latin, Cuban veteran leaders that can help them adapt to the big league level. That's not the worst thing that could happen to them.
Agreed.
But on another note, we told you guys last week we're going to start talking about prospects. Since we talked last, a couple more have been brought up. And it's just going to keep getting better and better. And I really, really like prospects. Mo likes them as well. So I love talking about these. I love digging into them. We're each going to give a couple each week. If you guys have any specific you want to hear about, hit up the Around the Bases pod handle and let us know, or let either one of us know, and we'll make a point to talk about them on the podcast. But the first one, over the weekend in that Atlanta series, Mr. Pilar had a kind word, the F word, but not the 4-letter one that rhymes with yuck. It was a different one that rhymes with tag, and it got him suspended for 2 games. So the Blue Jays surprised a lot of people. They brought up Anthony Alford, one of their top prospects, just an absolute beast. But they brought him up from Double-A. That's what surprised a lot of people. This kid is they say he's potentially got all the 5 tools. He's just really taken time to develop. He was a 2-sport athlete. Once he kind of gave up on football finally, he's really, really settled in. A couple years back, he was striking out over 30% of the time, 35% in his first season. But since then, he went to the Arizona Fall League this past year, hit 253, 349, 440 slash in 23 games, which is outstanding for a kid that really hasn't been anywhere past high A ball. So he really took a big plunge in his competition. Started out this year, like I said, in Double-A. He was hitting 325, 411 OBP, 455 slugging, 16 walks to 24 strikeouts. So he really, really improved his strikeout rate down to 17.02% while walking 11.35% of the time, which is outstanding for a kid his age, especially for one that's shown such a lack of discipline in the past. A little bit of pop in his 33 games, 3 homers, 9 stolen bases. So he's definitely that power speed combo, probably more like it was 2015. He had 27 steals in 107 games to go with only 4 homers. So the 3 homers is a big plus. The power continued to develop because he's so young. I didn't give you his age. He's only 22. He'll be 23 in July. So super young, 3rd-round pick, 2012. Everybody thought he'd only be up for a couple days, but when Pilar came back, they kept him. So the Blue Jays are kind of on that deal where, you called them dead a little while back. They've kind of started to be competitive. They got Donaldson coming back soon, Tulo coming back. They're both rehabbing right now. If they click, this kid could have an impact. I think he goes back down and has to keep developing, but hey, they brought him up. He's one of their top prospects, and he's here for now at least. He's interesting to watch. So Anthony Alford, Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, potential 2020 guy there. And then on to Carson Fulmer of the White Sox, supposedly going to get a shot at the rotation this week. They've been rumored to bring this guy up for a couple of years now. They brought him up for sort of a cup of coffee last year in the bullpen, and he did not do well. He really had trouble with his command, and had like an 8.49 ERA in 8 appearances. So that he just wasn't good last year. He's been pretty good with a 3.86 ERA, but a 4.71 FIP in AAA as a starter, striking out about 7 guys per 9, and the control has been a little bit better. I just wonder whether he can stick in the rotation, and if he's not more of a reliever, maybe a setup guy down the road because of the control issues for pitching for a full game. And I'm not sure his stuff is good enough to really harness it to be in the rotation. So it's just another guy to watch. They took him 8th overall in 2015. I won't own any of them this year, even in my 20 team. I just think he's too much of a risk. I mean, he's got good stuff, but other than the high A year in 2015, where he really, really mowed down some guys, he really hasn't been great over a good set of time and good amount of innings in the minors to really give him that sort of top 100 prospect billing. I think it's more of where he was drafted and sort of some of the stuff that he does have, but they might give him a shot at the rotation. We'll see how he does. I'm not sure he can stick.
Yeah, very, very solid arm to go along with the rest of the clan they have down there. It's one of these days we might just have to just preview the Charlotte Knights because it's crazy what they have going on over there right now. It might just be a lot easier than picking and choosing each week.
You're probably right.
It's insane when you look at the White Sox top 30 prospects. I think like 10 of them are in Charlotte. So moving on to a guy we both really, really like. Charlie Blackmon Dong. We really, really like, but we both of us, we've been on the same page, maybe not on this podcast, but in text and other things about Gleyber Torres, or Gleyber Torres, however you want to pronounce it, of the New York Yankees. We have both been under the influence that they're in no hurry to rush him. They had a chance, when they needed a shortstop, given he got hurt, started in Double-A. But he got the promotion to Triple-A this year. That's why I wanted to talk about him, because apparently they're high on him. And, well, we knew they were high on him, but that they're so high on him that he might move a little faster than we thought. He crushed it in the Arizona Fall League. Arizona Fall League MVP, 403 batting average, 513 on base, 1158 OPS, which is insane. Like in the Arizona Fall League for a 21 or a 20-year-old, not even 21 yet. He hadn't played higher than high A ball. He was in that Chapman deal. He got traded from the Cubs to the Yankees last year. Just destroyed it. So 18 games, 3 homers, 11 ribbies in the Arizona Fall League. Heads over to Double-A Trenton. We spent some time on the DL. We did talk about that a few pods back, but in 32 games, 273 average, 5 homers, 18 RBIs. The crazy part is those home runs have all picked up lately. I believe they're all this past week. Yeah, it's all this past week to go with his. I got 5 stolen bases. Just monstrous stuff. And the big thing that makes this interesting is Chase Headley was on fire to start the year. He's struggling, one would say, a bit here of late, like really, really struggling. So there might be an opening for Torres to come in and play third base, because they have no reason to keep Headley blocking him. It's one thing to have Didi playing shortstop and Castro playing second. You have zero reason to have Chase Headley blocking Gleyber Torres at third base. So if he makes the next step, he'll probably have a couple bumps and bruises along the way. But this kid's a very, very talented ball player. As we all know, #1 prospect in their organization. He's Baseball America's #5, Major League Baseball's #3, and Baseball Prospectus #15 overall in all of baseball. He's a beast. 20-plus steal potential. The power is developing big time. I could easily see a 2020. I don't want to say 30-30 because that's way too ambitious, and that's a special crowd. But if he does develop power in that stadium and they let him run wild like he can, this kid could be extremely special and hit you around 280 and be a big part of the middle of that batting order. I'm looking forward to when he gets to make that claim in the Bronx. I know you're not, but I am looking forward to watching that.
Yeah, as a baseball fan, I am, but Cashman has really crushed it with these trades the last few years. I mean, it's the complete opposite of how he's had to build that team over the years, where it changed into buying the championships to go youth and actually have the Steinbrenners back him to sell rather than, keep going with what they're doing to win as many games as they can to fill as many seats as they can. So it's the landscape that's changed there. I'm going to guess. I'm going to take an educated guess like I did with Robert and say that he'll be up here by July 1st. I really, really think, I guess it depends on how he does defensively at third base. I mean, it's a little bit of a change going from, short to third. But as long as he, hits like he's supposed to hit and doesn't get killed defensively there, Headley's not good. We all know that. I only think it's a matter of time that he's up here, and I'm going to say within 6 weeks here that he's going to be up with the big club, especially if they continue to work in the direction that they're working in, which is potential AL East champion, which is insane to think about before the season. Next guy, super sleeper. I mean, you brought him up this week. He wasn't really on my radar with the San Diego Padres. Dinelson Lamet. He's going to get a chance in the rotation this week. He's got a 4-seam fastball, 2-seam. He's got a slider that's been able to locate this year, and then he's got a changeup that's in a developmental pitch right now. If he can develop something there, that's also a good thing. His fastball reaches 97. He's really, really improved over the past few years. This year he's striking out 11.5 guys per 9. The walks are a little bit an issue, about 4.6. But this year he's really been a ground ball pitcher, and he's got a 3.23 ERA with 3.40 FIP. So like I said, really super sleeper. and especially in that ballpark where, he may get a little help from some fly ball, but with 50% ground ball, if he can keep that up, that's a good sign in that ballpark. Really, really sleeper guy. I know for a fact, I went to look this week. He's not available in Yahoo leagues yet. So I have the number one waiver in my dynasty league. I'll probably wait on that one. I don't think he's that good of a prospect, even though there's not a lot of them get added. But that's a guy that you can, when he gets added, maybe take a look at him. I'm not sure, maybe a 12 team, depending on the matchup, but anything above that, and especially in NL only, watch out when he gets added.
Yeah. I know I saw it pop up and I sent you the message, and I haven't heard of him. I'm in a dynasty league that has 14 or 15 of us. We have 40-man rosters. Like, you can draft kids that are still in high school that are coming up. There's all kinds of things you can do. And so pretty much any prospect that's worth anything has been taken, and this guy's available. So he snuck under so many radars. It was crazy, because even when we previewed the Padres, we talked about some of the young studs they have coming up, and like their single A team's coming to San Jose this weekend, and I'm going to make it a point to go check them out on Saturday night, because they have a bunch of good young pitchers, and this guy was nowhere to be found on any research I've ever done. So it's intriguing. They think very highly of him. So, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say, like a 10-team league, but 12 or above, NL only for sure. He's worth a dart, especially in the right matchups. It's interesting. Another one that just came out of nowhere today, we either get big breaking news or something off the wall on the days we record, and this is it for today so far, unless something happens soon. Sam Travis of the Boston Red Sox gets called up. He's a right-handed hitting first baseman. You would know much more about him than I literally texted you and said, what is this all about? Because Mitchie Two Bags is the talk of the town right now. What is going on with the Red Sox and Sam Travis, and what can we expect?
He's been, a sneaky prospect for a few years now. Obviously, when Dombrowski made the trades, he kind of flew up and was the number 3 prospect behind Devers and Groom after we drafted Groom last year. He got hurt last year. He was due to come up and possibly be the full-time first baseman while Hanley is the DH, but again, he got hurt. So they took a flyer on Moreland. It's kind of worked so far, although Moreland is in a bit of a rut. He's like 6 for 46, I think, in the last 2 weeks. So he's in a little bit of a rut. I think he needs a break. He's never been able to really hit lefties. So, we got Martin Perez this week coming tomorrow. They face Quintana coming up. And then there's a couple of to-be-determined pitchers. Those could be lefties too. And then Travis, I would assume Travis would get a right-hander in between there as well, because I don't think you bring up one of your top prospects, especially the ones you have left, if you're not going to play him. That doesn't make any sense at all. We've harped on that often, especially with Conforto, and now they've let him play in New York. So he's been on a tear in May, an absolute tear. He's 22 for 66, 333, 3 homers, 13 RBIs in Pawtucket. So he started off slow, coming off, in his first full season back. And now he's kind of on a tear. So they had to make some changes here. We'll talk about another issue coming up in a couple topics with the team. But they needed to make a splash a little bit. And I think the main point about this, I love Sam Travis. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he had more of a ceiling than Travis Shaw when he came up. Travis Shaw was kind of a lightning bolt there when he came up at the end of 2015. I think the main point is Hanley Ramirez is trying to be David Ortiz again, and he's not going to be playing the field. He's done with the field. He's going to throw sunflower seeds at our sideline girl and fans and just have a ball in the dugout when he's not hitting. So that's the main point about Sam Travis being called up today.
I have a couple questions for you real quick before we move on. How long do you think he sticks around? B, does this mean if they're making moves like this that maybe we see Devers or Devers before we thought we would? And C, I'm being lazy now, but how much longer do you guys have Hanley for?
We have Hanley for another 2 years after this, I believe. Actually, no, I think it's next year and then an option.
Okay.
So I'd have to confirm that, but I'm 99% sure there's an option year there because I know that Sandoval, I believe, was one of them was 4 and one of them was 5, and I can check real quick while I answer the Devers. Um, I don't think he's ready. I would love for him to be ready. I don't think they're going to rush him in that way because, well, number one, they've decided that because Devin Marrero has been playing, they've just said, okay, we just need a defensive guy over there because they've been terrible. Marco Hernandez, Josh Rutledge, terrible defensively over there. So they decided that Devin Marrero can't hit, but at least he's not going to kill us in the field. And that's what they've kind of done. So, yeah, Hanley's he's got one more year after this and then a 19 option, which is a vesting option. Which is $22 million. So we'll see how he does hitting there. So that's because that's a lot of money for him. So if he has a year like he did last year, he'll be fine. Like I said, Devers, he's only had about 160 plate appearances above high A. So that's, really, really raw. Obviously having a great year in Double A, but I think I would think that they would still wait until the trade deadline to see what they can do there and not rush him because although they want to win, I don't think they also want to just ruin him by bringing him up too early.
Makes sense.
So I mean that's the prospect talk right there. Some interesting prospects to watch. Obviously, a couple of them not mainstream guys, but you never know what happens out there. And now we're 2 months, a little over 2 months away from the trade deadline. But there are some teams out of the picture and some teams that have kind of separated themselves. So we're going to do some buyers and sellers. We're going to do a couple teams a week maybe. We're going to start with the buyers, the Houston Astros. We've talked about it even before the season, and that's sort of the reason why we picked Seattle. The need here is obviously starting pitching, and that's the only need I see. Bubba, I mean, you've got a couple of guys that you could kind of focus on. Quintana, obviously, possibly Marco Estrada if the Blue Jays are out of it. Your guy Cueto if San Fran's out of it and he really opts out. And then some sneaky guys, Archer and Garrett Cole. And then the main guys, and I kind of predicted it, and not really a hard-hitting take because it's their top 2 prospects, but it starts with Kyle Tucker and Francis Martes. You've seen Martes. What do you think about the Astros, and do you see any other needs other than that coveted starting pitcher?
When it comes to the Astros, I think it starts and probably ends with the starting pitcher because that offense is filthy. It's hard unless you go for maybe just like a very cheap pinch hit bat somewhere, like a veteran bat off the bench or a utility player. Out of offense unless an injury happens. That's very possible. But right now you look at it, they're hitting top to bottom all over the place. I wouldn't worry too much about that, especially when you look at the minors. You have like 3 outfielders that are ready to just step up at a moment's notice. You have some great infielders in Fresno and in Kemp and company. Like you have the talent there if you just need something. They don't have the pitching that's ready. Like sure, like you have Martes in Fresno, you have David Paulino in Fresno. You have their 1 and 3 prospects. But like I told you with Martes, it's a lot between the ears. The stuff's there. He's a beast. I would take as much time as possible before you brought him up. I really, really would. They still might bring him up this year. They probably will. Hell, why wouldn't you if you need a starting pitcher? I just think it's going to be rocky with him. He's going to have great games and then other games that are just like, what just happened? But you have him and Paulino. The only thing I think, try to trade whatever you can, but do not trade Kyle Tucker. This kid looks amazing because he's only in single A at the moment. He'll probably be in double A by next week for all we know. He is just hitting everything that comes his direction. he's one of those guys at the moment, and a lot can change through the levels. Obviously, he's only in single A, but at the moment, he looks like one of those top outfield players, not just prospects on their team, just players in the bigs. When he gets up to the level, he looks that good. So go trade Derek Fisher, go trade Hernandez. What was the other outfielder I saw there? They have a boatload of them. It's ridiculous. You have tons of options. The one thing I would say is do everything in your power to keep Kyle Tucker. But yeah, they need a starting pitcher. We've talked about it forever. The Cueto part's scary just because he's got the chance to opt out. And if he plays really bad, well, now you're stuck with him for 4 more years at like $85 million. But yeah, Cueto, Archer, Quintana, or you can go cheaper elsewhere. They're going to get one. It's just a matter of which one.
Yeah, I don't think you can get one of those guys without Kyle Tucker. I think that's where you're kind of in that Royals Pirates scenario where the Royals went for it and got their ring, and the Pirates held pat, didn't make any big time trades, and made the playoffs, but couldn't get over that hump. And now they might have to sell everyone to start completely over, like a handful of teams are doing right now. So I think that's the issue you have with the Astros is they have a legitimate chance to win the World Series. And if you really think that as an organization, then you got to go all out to go make sure you get that ring.
Yeah, or which I totally agree with. And if it's a guy you could do that with, like an Archer, someone that makes the difference, it's huge. Or you can go a different angle and get like another number 3 to go with Keuchel and company, and then you can save, like Estrada, something like that. Then you can save the big gun, maybe package an extra prospect in the middle of the pack, and everybody's happy.
Maybe so. I guess what you're saying is, and I think you would do this. You only trade Tucker if you're getting Quintana because you have him under control for multiple years.
1,000%. You have to, if you're giving up this kid, like I know he's in single A, and I keep wanting to say this, he could literally slip on the banana peel and never be the same again. But what he's doing at that level, he's making it look like he's a professional playing high schoolers. That's crazy. And he's so young. If he continues to develop at that pace, that's all I'm saying. It's a big if, a very big if. But if he can, like I'm not saying Bryce Harper comparisons, but he's getting towards that level of talk and stats and everything you look at. It's crazy. So you better get something good for him. That's all I'm trying to say. It better be good.
I agree.
But moving on to another team. We've been talking about the Astros needing a starting pitcher. Well, we've been talking about the darn Washington Nationals needing a god darn closer. So that carousel continues. By the way, we have no bullpen report this week, people. We're sparing you that damage. But here's your bullpen report. The Nationals need a closer. It's been very simple. It's been very publicized. And it needs to be David Robertson. And if it's not David Robertson, I would be thoroughly shocked. Only other main guy I could see them going for is like a Kelvin Herrera. They have been rumored to be talking to the Marlins about AJ Ramos because he has 2 years remaining. You have Alex Colomé with the Rays, who I love. I was big on him going into the season. He's been great in fantasy. And then Roberto Osuna for the Jays is another guy they've mentioned. He keeps getting injured off and on. I know he's got great stuff. You've got to go for Robertson. But the same thing we always talk about is they've already blown their load in the minors. So it's weird. It's like you're not giving Victor Robles up. You already marked Eric Fetty to the bullpen. You already brought him up and put him in the pen. You're not touching Juan Soto. You got a bunch of talented players. What do you think the Nats are going to do? Because they have to do it. You know they're going to trade for one. What are they going to do?
It's really tough, too. And the Adam Eaton injury hasn't helped, too. So I kind of have center field as a need as well. If they don't think Michael Taylor can do it for a full season. He's got the minor league stats, but if he can't do it for a full season, you could go with the big guy, which is Lorenzo Cain, who's a free agent after this season, or on 2 other free agents that you could probably get for much cheaper is Jared Dyson, and Cameron Maven. Those are 2 guys you can get there. Obviously, their main need is closer. If they're going all out, they have to trade Robles. They just have to. They don't really have a choice. That's who Rick Hahn's going to ask for Robinson. I think two guys, if they think they can do it, and they want to be cheap and not trade Robles, you could go out to San Diego and get Brad Hand, who's the setup man right now for Mauer, or you could get Addison Reed from the Mets if they fall out. But I guess it depends on Familia and where the Mets want to go with that. And they don't just need a closer; they need a bullpen guy as well. And so you mentioned Hand again, and a couple of other guys that are free agents that are having great seasons. Joe Smith up in Toronto and Swarzak in Chicago. So if you can probably get those guys cheaper too, you could kind of say to Rick Hahn, hey, we want Robinson, but if we're going to give Robles and Soto up, we want Swarzak too. So now you kind of kill two birds with one stone. Is Swarzak for real? Who knows? His FIP says so in terms of his ERA. So it's not like anything's crazy there with his peripherals, but it's a tough situation for the Nationals. They're going for it. They're going to go for it. So if you're going to go for it, might as well empty the entire thing and hope you have a great draft and maybe you have a chance at some international free agents next year. But these next 2 years, that's it. Bryce Harper's gone after that.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is if you are going to trade these guys, you got to think about it. The time is now because, like you just said, Harper's going to be gone. Murphy's just going to get older. Zimmerman, how long is this going to keep up for, really? The time is now. We know Strasburg's arm could fall off at any moment. The interesting part, I do agree with the sell-off. It's kind of like the theory with the Astros. If you're going to sell it off, get the pieces you need. So say they don't go Robertson and they want like more control. I know Nate Jones is hurt, but what about like a Nate Jones Swarzak or a Nate Jones Conley? Because they've said he's pretty good out of the pen. He's looked good this year out of the pen. What about something along those lines with some more club control? Could you see that being an option? Or are we talking – because most of these guys we're talking about, and they are the top options, they're all free agents coming up. So you're getting rid of a Victor Robles and the type, and you're losing all these guys. That's tough.
Yeah, if you want more control, I would think, I don't think there's a closer out there you're going to get for more control. I mean, he's not having a great year this year. But Herrera from Kansas City isn't a free agent until after next year, and that's sort of your window. So if you want more control there, it's not like his velocity is way down. I mean, he's, it's like 97.5, where he's been at 98.1 past few seasons. But his ERA is up there, his FIP's up there. He's allowing a shit ton of homers, and then everything else is sort of right where it should be. So I think if you want more control for your window, that's the guy you go with in terms of a closer possibility. And you might get him for just Soto and another guy. They may not. Royals, are going to shoot for the moon, obviously, but, they're going to be trading everyone, as we'll talk about in a couple minutes.
Yeah, there's one last thing. We can move on to those Royals. Here's an off-the-wall one, and it's got like a 1% chance, maybe less, of happening. But if you want to unload, AJ Ramos has 2 more deals. You can go knock on the door for Ozuna or Stanton, and there you go. You'd have to unload. Now, I'm not saying get both Ozuna and Stanton, one or the other. But if you want to unload and you get your options, you could do that. You could also have him try to throw in Echeverria or something. You can move Trey Turner to center field. There's options.
There is options. It's going to be that Marlins team. I just don't think there's going to be no big deals unless Derek Jeter says it's possible.
Yeah, no, you're probably completely right. It's an option. It's off the wall.
Hey, we would love it. We would love to talk about it. So on to our 2 sellers. We've kind of already brought them up indirectly, but we start with the Kansas City Royals. I think we'll be pretty damn quick on these 2 because, it's pretty obvious where they were going before this. Royals have a bunch of free agents, starting with Eric Hosmer, the 10-year man, and then Lorenzo Cain, Mike Moustakas, who's cooled down a bit. Escobar is having a terrible year, and then the sneaky guy is Jason Vargas. People need starting pitching. If they believe in the guy and they maybe need 3, probably get him the cheapest. And their farm system is empty. It is really, really empty. They need to rebuild it again. They traded everyone to go get Cueto and Zobrist and other guys. Luckily for them, most of their prospects that they traded for Cueto are awful in Cincinnati, so that they didn't really hurt them there. But they're in for a long rebuild. They're already behind the times with Chicago and Minnesota in their division. I mean, not much there to say other than they just need prospects. What do you think, Bubba?
Yeah, you're 100% right. This is something we've said since the AL Central preview. If they get off to a slow start, the fire sale begins. Pretty much anyone that wants to knock on the door with I'd say like a 75-25 type offer, they listen to, because when you're in a market like these guys are, you rely on these young, cheap, talented players. It's very easy. I'm not speaking gibberish here. This is common sense. And if they can go and get one or two decent prospects or one big time prospect and ship off a Hosmer or ship off a Kane or this, that, or the other, you got to do it right now. And I think the sooner you do it, the better, because you might get more for it, so the teams can enjoy the help of the recipient longer. So, yeah, I won't go too deep into it, like you said. We talked about it before. I know we're going to talk about them again because they will be sellers. But you got Hosmer, who's actually hitting above 300 now, I believe, or at least in the last month. Just no power still, which is crazy. But you have Hosmer, like you said, Kane, Herrera. Their list is long. They got to trade. There's no way around it.
Yeah, he's hitting Hosmer's hitting 308 now. His ground ball rate's around where it normally is. But yeah, that's the big guy right there.
Yeah, Hosmer just needs to spend an offseason with Daniel Murphy and Ryan Zimmerman, and he might hit 45 home runs. So it'd be good to go. The other team we talked about was the Chicago White Sox, and we talked about them over and over and over again, but they're fun to talk about. They have a lot of fun young talent. But when you're talking the White Sox, they've already fleeced the Nationals once. They've got a big deal to get Chris Sale. You remember that one, to get Yoman Moncada. They just signed Luis Robert. They continue to rebuild. And they still have Quintana. Melky Cabrera has been mentioned, potentially Todd Frazier, Abreu. They have options. There's no one really off limits in Chicago that veteran-wise. So eventually these deals are going to start happening. I think Robertson's the most for sure thing. What do you think is going to happen in Chicago?
Yeah, Frazier and Melky, I would think, would be gone. They're both free agents. I mentioned Swarzak earlier as a free agent. Robertson, Derek Holland have 1 year left. I would think that they should sell high on Holland. I don't see why that he isn't gone within the next month and a half, because he's just not as good as he's been pitching. Quintana's the real wild card, because Rick Hahn doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to do anything with him. They have him locked up. They have multiple option years, I think, till 2021. Maybe 2020 is what it is. I think I have 3 years left down in my notes here. But yeah, that's the guy. They're in great shape. I mean, they really are. White Sox fans have to really be enjoying the season. They're 20-23 right now, so they're doing really well. I mean, if you want to see good baseball, obviously, as you're watching, but at the same time, they want to try and lock down a top 10 pick if possible. And I think ultimately they'll end up in that spot. They're in fourth in the Central now. The Tigers and the Indians will obviously be in front of them, and the Twins are playing really good baseball. So I think they got to nail these drafts. They got the international prospect that everyone's wanted. So they're way ahead of schedule here.
Yeah, they're looking good. I don't have a whole lot to say. Their rebuild's been amazing, and I can't wait to see how they add on to it. And then hopefully in the upcoming months we get to see some of these young studs as they get ready to head into 2018 and eventually, like you said, 1920, where they really start to make a name for themselves. Well, we'll come back to some buyers and sellers next week, but let's take a brief little trip to court, basically. Jung Ho Kang, or Kang, loses his appeal on his DUI sentences. It's just wanted to bring this up because it's interesting. He's been nowhere to be found. Pirates want nothing to do with him, basically. And the Korean court said, no, your 8-month suspended prison sentence, for 2 years if you have good behavior, if people remember the podcast in the past, if he's under good behavior for 2 years, he basically just has, community service hours after this. But he tried to get it because he's just that crazy. He tried to get it reduced to a fine and whatnot, hoping it would allow him to come into the country. He can't get a visa. He can't play baseball. I don't have much else. It's just a little news update. Do you have anything else on this?
No, I mean, I wonder. First off, it's crazy to say he's got like 3-4 DUIs, and then they're like, "Oh, you're not going to go to jail for 8 months. You just can't get in trouble for 2 years. We're not letting you out of the country." So what I wonder is, the Pirates know they probably can't get him till 2019. Might as well let him play baseball in Korea. I don't know how that works or if they could even do it, but it makes the most sense for me for him to play baseball somewhere, and he can't leave his own country. So might as well let him play in Korea, and maybe he'll be Eric Thames when he comes back.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that a country with Kim Jong-un has such lenient disciplinary policies. 2
different countries, though.
True, it's true, and that's my geography lesson for the day. But you can. A couple episodes ago was my math. Today is geography. Next week it might be science, chemistry.
This is what I'm here for. No, I won't help you on science. This is what I'm here for. It's like
I'm here to talk baseball. Maybe I'll stick to sports as the way.
Yeah. No, don't do that hashtag. We don't like that. But I'm gonna lead this one, Bubba, and this is the last sort of news that we have of the podcast in terms of debating part. I'm just gonna go into it. Rosenthal is reporting that the Red Sox could fire John Farrell. There are some reports that if they had lost on Sunday and got swept by the A's from 4 games, he would have been gone. I've got a few things to say on this. John Farrell's an awful manager. We've all known this for a long time. They won in spite of him in 2013. They won the division last year and then got swept by a bad Indians team. And when I say bad, I mean they're without their top 3 starters or top 2 starters, and then they just had an amazing bullpen. So they weren't a bad team, but on paper, and the game isn't played on paper, they should have won that series, and they didn't. And then he got cancer, which is awful. Okay, cancer sucks. We all know, and he beat it, which is amazing. Okay, but they didn't finish last that year. Lovello came in. They were playing well under him. The young guys were playing well under him. He was making good in-game moves, which we haven't seen because that's John Farrell's weakness. When Dombrowski came in, it was a switch in ownership philosophy. Okay, since they bought the team, John Henry, Tom Werner, they had Larry Lucchino run the team. He wasn't the GM, but in my opinion, he was making a lot of the decisions, and that's why Theo Epstein left, and that's why we don't have him here, and that's why the Cubs have a World Series now. When Dombrowski got hired, John Henry said to him, Lucchino's out. He's going to go do other things. He's working with the AAA team, Pawtucket, whatever. You have full control of the team. You can do whatever you want, but you cannot fire John Farrell because he's coming off cancer, and I'm not going to have the PR stink by firing John Farrell, a guy who beat cancer and came off of it. We're going to give him the chance to come back. And that was the big issue, and so they decided because of that they were going to make Lovello the highest paid bench coach in the game. He was making more money than I believe half the managers in the league at that time because that was his crutch. And now, I know I'm going rambling on here, but now we get to the point where John Farrell, they finally figured out he's not a good manager. Maybe they tuned him out. Pomeranz is an idiot, by the way. You're at 97 pitches in 4 innings. Get off the field. Okay, if he tells you to get off the field, get off the field. Okay, you're not pitching anymore. Shouldn't take you 97 pitches in 4 innings, letting up 1 run. Shouldn't happen. That's neither here nor there. Now Dombrowski, in my opinion, is keeping him because if he fires Farrell, then it's on him. Right now, he can blame it on Farrell. Well, I didn't have my manager. I wasn't able to hire my manager. But if he fires Farrell, it's Dombrowski's head if they don't produce. And it is what it is. I've been a Lavello guy. They let him go. Look what the Diamondbacks are doing. They're playing great baseball under him. They're fun to watch. And you let him go. That was your guy. And now you have to ride it out for a little bit, but it could be coming to a head pretty soon, Bubba.
Yeah. When I saw this, that's why I texted you like immediately said, "What's this all about?" And your response was, "We'll talk about it." I was like, I know how much Farrell just pisses you off, and by no means am I saying this to say I like to get you riled up. That has nothing to do with it. I just like it because you don't sugarcoat it and you say exactly how it is. You hear how it all goes in Boston. And that's one of the parts I love about it. That's why I have you talk about it. I ask you to talk about it. And it's very interesting, the details you just laid out there with Dombrowski and all the intricacies there, because I didn't know any of that. I don't know how many people outside of Boston or outside, say, the AL East really knew about that. Or maybe I just live under a rock, but I pay attention to most of baseball. So that is very intriguing to me. Your guys, like we talked about last week, they keep hovering around 500, but they're there. They're talented. When we're not worried about them, what's it? Like you said, you don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. At least you would be surprised. What would it really take to get him fired right now? And a lot of teams, especially really good teams like, say, the Red Sox or other teams, kind of have a plan in place. Do they even have a plan B? I know you said Lavello's left, and that was a stud. Why would you do this in the middle of the season with a contender? Basically, it's what I'm confused about.
So, I think I kind of know what the plan is. I mean, it's changed. Trust me, it's changed because Ben Cherington was here and he kept the young guys. Now you've seen what they've done. We have Bogarts, we have Betts, we have Bradley, we have Benintendi. Now we got Sam Travis coming up. Devers is not too far away. And they kept those guys, and it worked. When Dombrowski comes in, he murders the farm systems. He tries to build a World Series contender fast. Dombrowski's not a young guy. So it's not like he's going to be here for 10 years. He's trying to win now because he's only a 3 to 5 year guy for the most part. They have to draft well, especially where they can't sign any international free agents. They have to have good drafts or the farm system is screwed. And then, all of a sudden, granted, we have more resources than the Kansas City Royals, but in terms of comparing farm systems, we're the Kansas City Royals. We have nothing. So I think the line, I don't know what the line is per se, but you're playing a Texas team that's hot. Granted, they haven't played anyone in that hot streak for the most part. And then you have a Seattle team that's traveling as far as they have to travel pretty much. And we pretty much have the pitching matchups that we want. Like for Texas, we avoid Yu Darvish. Don't have to face him. Seattle, it doesn't matter right now because they're all hurt. And then the White Sox, we get Quintana, but we're not facing any world beaters here. The offense should really go. So in the next 9 games, if they go 4-5, even 5-4, we got to go 6-3 at minimum here. You got to win every series and lose only one. You got to go 6-3. So if they go under 500 in the next 9 games or so, and we're on June 1st, at 500 or under 500, that's the time to do it. You got to shake it up.
Well, I can't wait to see how it happens because if this does happen, we will have a lot to talk about. So that'll be something else. But we'll move on. Why don't you take us into our ALDL news?
Yeah, let's get to this quickly. Again, only a few of them, which we both love because we kind of hate talking about it. Aaron Sanchez, 3rd time this year to the DL with a blister. This thing is lingering. We're in Rich Hill territory here for Toronto. Not good for that guy, young player. Brad Miller to the DL, left abdominal strain. He expects to be back right after he's eligible, so that's kind of good news. The tough one here is Dallas Keuchel, pinched nerve and neck. He expects him only to miss one start. I don't want to be that guy to say, "Oh, I've had a neck injury before." You know, people calling to Boston, "Yeah, I've had a left knee injury before, and it really hurt me, and I couldn't play Little League baseball." So that's you have those guys in Boston calling in with their accents and whatnot. It's nerve and neck is nothing to write home about right there. It really isn't. But they said it's nothing serious. They expect him to be back after one start because it was retroactive a few days before. Brian McCann having a great season, 7-day DL with a concussion. And the last update, the unique elbow update, David Price, he threw 65 pitches in Buffalo, 2 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, and 4 Ks. They're going to have him do one more rehab start Wednesday. I believe the game is in Pawtucket. If I wasn't busy, I was going to drive down there, maybe heckle him a little bit, tell him to get Tommy John, and let's get this over with. But fortunately, I'm busy, so I can't get down there. But he's going to throw 85, 90 pitches tomorrow. The good thing is he struck 4 guys out. The bad thing is he left, 5 hits and 3 earned runs in 2 innings. But you got to treat that like a spring training start where he's kind of working everything in there. So I'm not really worried about the earned runs and the hits. I'm happy about, out of the 6 outs that he got, he struck out 4 guys. So that's the ALDL news. Bubba, take us to the NL and tell us about my guy, Freddie Freeman.
We will get there real quick, but it was something I meant to mention in the Farrell part. I think it'd be so great is if it's Price's first start and Farrell extends him too long and he has to have Tommy John surgery and then they fire him. That's what I'm seeing happening. But moving on, the NLDL news. A guy we both love, like you said, your man Freddie Freeman. I have a tiny man crush that has built throughout fantasy baseball thanks to one $50,000 night and his 40-point production. We talked about are the consistent back and forth over the 4-game series between the Braves and the Blue Jays. Hit on the wrist, fractured wrist, out at least 8 weeks. They're thinking 8 to 10 weeks. The dude was leading the National League in 14 homers, hitting 341. He was just crushing baseballs. They did trade for big Matt Adams, or he's skinnier this year, skinny Matt Adams. Went yard yesterday. There are worse people they could have fill in for 8 weeks. It's not the worst thing they could do. So he'll be back, but it's like we talked about with certain injuries. You talk to a wrist, it might take a while for the power to rebuild in that wrist, and that's where it gets interesting. So I'd say temper expectations, but he's Freddie. I just hope he gets healthy for next year because Atlanta's rebuilding. There's really no need to push things with him. Justin Turner of the Los Angeles Dodgers going to the DL. Another Dodger to the DL. Yes, he has a grade 1 hamstring injury, so the weakest you can have. They're hoping he's only out a couple weeks. It's he had the same injury back in 2014, a hamstring injury, missed only the 15 games. Then he came right back, so they're hoping it's nothing too crazy. David Wright of your New York Mets had another setback. He's already on the 60-day DL with spinal stenosis. He was doing his throwing program. He tweaked his shoulder. He has shoulder impingement. He's shut down again. The bright side, this is something I did not even know about with all the David Wright stuff. The Mets insurance policy, the longer he's out, they get to keep collecting money to not pay him, and they can use that money towards paying other people, say they want to make a trade at the deadline because they're still kind of in it like they are right now. They can use that extra money they would have paid David Wright during the season so far towards whatever they bring in, which I had no idea about. That's very interesting to me, at least. I knew they had insurance policies. I didn't know that's how it worked out. But the bright side, Cespedes might rehab this weekend. Matt's through his first rehab start in single A. They kind of have things working in their direction. Taijuan Walker to the disabled list with a blister for the Diamondbacks retroactive to Saturday, another blister problem. They called up TJ McFarland to fill in. They're hoping it's, just a minor thing, hopefully. But, these blisters, we've seen him with enough pitchers. He's been actually pretty good this year, 3.46 ERA, 3.42 FIP, almost 8 Ks per 9, 8% home run to fly ball rate. That was always his problem. So they hope he's not out too long because they're contending right now in an interesting NL West. Jared Weaver went to the DL with hurt feelings. That's all I'm going to say there. I don't even care if it's a real injury. It's just that bad. Just stay. Go away. Do what Eric Gagne did. Give up your career. Trevor Cahill to the DL. That one sucked. We briefly mentioned it last time. Right shoulder strain, and then he threw off a mound on Saturday, and it did not feel good. So they pulled him back. They have no timetable for his return right now. We talked about how great he's been this year. So that was a big, big surprise. It was surprised he got hurt, and then when you're on a normal throwing program to come back and you get that banged up already, not good. When he's another one for the Astros, a lower price trade option was Trevor Cahill. And if he can't throw, obviously he's not getting traded. So interesting there. But that is your NLDL news. Why don't you kick us off with some fantasy buy low players?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a buy low, a little bit of would you rather the rest of the season. This first one, it could be a would you rather the next few years because they're both young players. I believe they're both 23 years old. Dansby Swanson versus Tim Anderson. I think for this season, Bubba, I think especially in 10-team, 12-team, it's tough to own either of these guys. But if you're in a keeper, you're in a dynasty, you may want to keep in a 14 to 20-team league. You may want to keep a lookout for these guys. Dansby Swanson, they both were terrible in April. He was 156, and then in May he was 288, and Tim Anderson was 204, and then 345 in May. And Swanson's spreading the ball to all fields in May, so that's a good thing. I think he's got more potential in terms of categories than Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson, might be just a steals guy if he can get on base, but he doesn't walk enough. I think the good news with him is from April to May, his hard hit was up from about 25% to 40%. The good news, he's hitting the ball a little bit harder. I just think he's going to be only a speed guy, maybe an average guy, 285, 290, if that. But he doesn't get on base enough. I mean, they just got that big deal, which is a good thing. They're paying their young guys. They're showing that they're committed to the cause. The White Sox are. But I think, first full season for Swanson. He's in a nice ballpark. I think obviously get much warmer down there in Atlanta. And then they started batting him at the beginning of the order, top of the order, beginning of the season. Now he's batting 8th and 9th down there, so a little bit less pressure on him. I think for rest of season, if I had to pick one of them, and even rest for the next, let's say, 5 years, I think I'd go with Swanson over Anderson because I think he has a little bit more potential in more categories in terms of could be, a 15, 20 homer guy if he really gets there. And again, they robbed the D-back. I'd go Dansby Swanson here.
Yeah, it's a tough one because they've just been so bad to start the year, like you said. Both highly touted prospects. Obviously, Swanson, like you said, first-round pick. I would probably lean Swanson just because once he gets it figured out, he'll be at the top of the order with the likes of Freeman and company behind him. But that's where you kind of think Tim Anderson could be fun once, say Moncada and Robert and whoever they get for Robertson and company are hitting there, and maybe they keep Abreu. That doesn't suck either. So, like you said, Anderson's probably more of a speed guy. He's only maxed out at no more than 13 home runs in a season in the minor leagues or the pros combined. He already had 5 this year, though, so he's already had a pace there. Maybe he's liking the friendly confines of Chicago. But he's actually outperformed the expectations I had. I thought he'd just be a steals guy, and that's about it. If he can hit you 280, he'd be huge. I agree. I'd go Swanson over Anderson, but it's a lot closer than you think. It's a good question, dynasty-wise. I like that one a lot. That's an intriguing look at it, as you could say. Moving on, 2 struggling outfielders right now, and I'm curious on your thoughts on would you buy low on either. But I'm talking Andrew McCutchen versus Kyle Schwarber. McCutchen, he was targets of all the trades in the offseason, all that good stuff. He stuck around. Marte got, his suspension, so now he's on his own basically with Polanco, who's hurt, so he literally is on his own in the outfield. Back into center field. He's only hitting 206 this year with only a 222 BABIP, which is horrible. Still a 164 ISO, which is not good at all. 6 homers, 19 or 20 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, so he's almost got as many steals as he had all of last year, which I guess is a plus in that regard. But as a whole, he's deteriorated quite a bit. He's not even walking 10% of the time, which you would hope for more out of Kutch for that. And you got the likes of Schwarber, who's we know what he can do. I think, I talked about it on a other podcast recently, he needs to not be leading off for crying out loud. He's a power hitter. Put him in 6th or 7th in the order, move him around, let him get somewhere where he can actually relax and be productive. He's batting a .184 with a 227 BABIP, the same ISO as McCutchen of 164, striking out over 27% of the time. Only 6 homers and 18 RBIs. Not good at all. I would go Schwarber, especially dynasty-wise, obviously. I'd go Schwarber just for the offense, the environment he's in. He went yard again tonight. He seems to be hitting well the last couple of weeks. But McCutchen could get traded to somewhere pretty nice, and you kind of got to factor that in a little bit when you're thinking of these things. What are your thoughts on these two ball players?
I go Schwarber. I agree with the whole get him out of, and I actually looked at that. He's only it's been either 1st or 2nd for him all year, so they believe in that. I know just from Theo being in Boston and kind of started this whole trend way back when. I'm not saying he started, but he was kind of ahead of the game here with OBP. And that's why Schwarber's still up there, because he's still getting on base, even though he's batting, below 200. He's still at about like a 304 on base percentage. So he's still getting on base, and that's sort of a big thing for Theo. But I think, I would definitely get him down the order if you could find someone to really to be that, leadoff guy if you could. McCutchen just doesn't move the needle, and I'm kind of thinking of this now after we talked about the Nationals, and maybe they could somehow buy low on McCutchen and get Tony Watson in there too from the Pirates. That's a sneaky thing that I kind of just came up with, because McCutchen isn't the 314, 25, 90 guy with 20 stolen bases that he was 3-4 years ago. He's gone from 27 to 18 to 11 to 6 to 5. And it's great that he already has 5 stolen bases. He'll probably by the middle of June, he'll probably be above that. Maybe he's only tried to steal 6 times in the first couple months. But he's batting 206. ISO's way down. Again, you said the BABIP, so that will come up a little bit. But I'm just not a McCutchen guy really anymore. And it doesn't help when Polanco's in the DL and Marte's suspended. So he's really sadly the most dangerous hitter they have on that team right now. Josh Bell's kind of coming to his own a little bit, but he won't be seeing many pitches there either. So the hard hit for McCutchen has gone way down to 32%. So it's steadily declined year by year. I think as we get into the summer, Schwarber the power will come. His BABIP in May is 143, but he's striking out much less. So I would go Schwarber here. I don't think it's that hard of a decision. Obviously younger. I go Schwarber over McCutchen. You want to go Odor and Russell?
Okay, we'll do that one then. It's kind of a middle infield battle, not as much, second base, shortstop. But most leagues these days have middle infielder. And these are just two guys that coming into the draft season were super high on the list of many. And Russell kind of started out pretty fast, but has been very bad overall. Batting cleanup most days to top it off. Like, why can't Russell lead off and Schwarber bat cleanup? Just an idea. But 216, 256 BABIP, 137 ISO. Your cleanup hitter has a 137 ISO. Just sleep on that for a second. He's got 3 homers, 19 ribbies. Just very, very, very bad. The talent level's there. They traded for him a couple years back, I believe, in the Samardzija deal. You know, he had 21 homers last year with the Cubs, 95 RBIs. So I guess that's why you'd say cleanup. He's not even striking out 20% of the time. His last 2 years, he's been 20 plus. His walks are down a little bit, but it's kind of around his career numbers. They're not like that far off. It's just the production is a disaster right now. And it's confusing. I still think the kid's going to be great, but it's odd seeing how much he's struggled. Now you go to Ruby Odor, 2015 at 261, 2016 at 271, with a 334 WOBA and a 204 ISO in 15, a 336, 231 ISO in 16. Well, this year he's batting a $199 with a 260 WOBA and a 148 ISO with a 216 BABIP. I don't know if his hand's still broken for punching Bautista in the face, but he can't hit the damn baseball right now at all. He had 33 bombs last year. He's got 6 this year to go with 19 ribbies. He's got 4 steals, which is nice. He's walking more than normal, striking out a little less than last year. I'm confused on Odor. I don't dig as deep as many do in the stats. I kind of just stay on the surface for the most part. His WRC plus is pathetic at 55, which is really, really bad. But he's been horrible. I know it's going to heat up in that ballpark this summer, which will play really nicely to him. I would go Russell for the rest of the season. But in some weird way, it's close because to me, it kind of decides on what you're looking for. I don't know if that makes any sense. But I go Addison Russell. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. I tried to look at Odor a little bit. I was skeptical at the beginning of the season of his 33 homers. I thought that was a little fluky. I'm not sure that'll happen again. I think he's more a 20 to 25 homer guy, but he plays in the right ballpark. And he's a pull hitter. I mean, he does not hit the ball in the opposite field. You know, last year it was like 19%. This year it's 20%. And then in terms of opposite field. So he's a big time pull hitter. So I tried to look at some graphs to see whether, they're pitching away from him or pitching, down and out. I couldn't find, the necessary graphs that would help me with that. But the Russell thing, I don't think he gets on base enough for them to lead off. And it's unfortunate. I don't know if they have really a leadoff hitter for the Cubs. I mean, maybe Zobrist is the guy they need to just suck it up and put him up there. But that's another question for another day. I think where his BABIP is way down, and he's in a good ballpark, and eventually he's going to get to 20 to 25, and he's going to hit 240. I think the resurgence will give this one to Odor because, Addison Russell isn't too far off from where he normally hits. His BABIP last year was 277, and it's 256, and then his average is 216. Well, last year was 238. So his average isn't too far off. He's only got 3 homers, and plays in a decent ballpark, especially when the wind's blowing out. I think I take Odor for the rest of the season because I do think he'll be about 50 points higher than what he is right now, and he'll kind of figure it out because the numbers aren't far off from where he normally is in terms of hard hit percentage and that sort of thing. If you want to look at something like that,
I agree.
Now we go to a few pitcher battles. The one I put on there is an interesting one. Kind of not an older guy, but older than this guy. I mean, it's Jeff Samardzija versus Carlos Martinez. Samardzija has been pretty amazing in May. I mean, he was terrible in April, but for the full season, he's got about 4.57 ERA, but 2.89 WHIP. Striking out again, it's the highest it's been of his career. I mean, he's striking out about 10.5 guys per 9. His walks are down, so that's really, really key right there. And then his BABIP can come down a tiny bit, and his left on base percentage can come up a tiny bit. Not as much of a ground ball pitcher as he's been in past years, but he's pitching much better than the ERA suggests. Velocity about the same. His hard hit percentage is down from where it was last year, and then his soft hit percentage is up to like 24%. So, I like Samardzija a lot. he's, like I said, had a tremendous May. And same goes to Martinez, though. He's really had a great May compared to his first part. The issue is, I mean, his walks are in the same sort of, 3.43, which is where he is, the last few seasons. He's 3.16 and 3.23. His homers are up a little bit, about 1.09, per nine. And then everything else is pretty much the same. He's got totally a 3.28 ERA and a 3.71 FIP. This is going to may surprise people, and maybe I'm just an idiot for looking, at just FIP. But the ballpark is a big ballpark there in San Francisco, and he's pitching really, really well right now. I'm probably going to surprise people, and people are just going to say, Mo, what are you smoking? Rest of the season, okay, I'm going to take Jeff Samardzija. I may be crazy, and you like to hear about it, but I just think like I said, that maybe the strikeouts can't stay there, but I just love with the walks are down. I just think he's going to continue to get that ERA down. He's pitching really well lately, and I'm going to take him rest of the season against Martinez, and we'll see. We'll check back in on this stuff and see how it goes. In a month or so.
Well, this is no homerism at all, but I completely agree with you. Carlos Martinez, I'm going to start with him. I'll get to Samardzija here in a minute, but I'll go to Carlos Martinez. First off, the thing that scares me the most with the kid is he has filthy stuff, but he's walking the world. And even when he's been pitching well of late, the walks are there. Not as high volume, obviously, but they're still there. That concerns me. The ballpark isn't, super hitter friendly, but you get warm in St. Louis, that ball flies. We've seen it before. That concerns me. I think he's still going to be a very good pitcher. This takes nothing away from him at all. Like you said, your FIPS and XFIPS that you're looking at on both guys, 3.71 and 3.52, still very respectable numbers. One really interesting tidbit, Bleacher Report put a picture out the other day. If people remember C-Mart with his nice silver extensions, he was 0-3, 4.71 ERA, 1.47 WHIP. Since he went to a barber, 3-0, 1.86 ERA, 0.83 WHIP. So if you believe in weird shit, there you go. But Samardzija, he has been really good. 10.5 Ks per nine. Like you said, I talk about barrel percentages a lot, the barrel FIP board and stuff that RO Baseball has. And in the last 30 days, he's near the top of that list, which is outstanding, like the least amount of barrel percentages and barrel FIP. The thing people need to pay attention to, his numbers are so inflated because of his first couple starts, which were in Arizona, in Colorado, and against Arizona. Not the easiest of matchups in the world, people. A lot of guys are going to struggle with this. Another thing is, as pitchers keep going through the season, they start gaining advantage over hitters where early in the season they're still not up to par yet. I like Samardzija a lot. I know I've heard him in a lot of shows. That's a guy that people should be trading for, because you said people might think you're crazy, and it's because people will think you're crazy. You're going to think I'm crazy because everywhere you turn, it's Samardzija's dog shit. Samardzija's this, that, or the other. Well, if that's the case and he's in your league, go trade for that guy. You'll get him for pennies on the dollar, because he's going to still have his Samardzija blowups from time to time. But even the games where Samardzija, I've watched him a ton. Even the games where he gives up 3 or 4 runs, he'll pitch into the 7th or 8th inning and get you 8+ strikeouts. So it really makes those numbers not look as bad. I'm with you on Jeff Samardzija.
Yeah,
let's move on. Yeah.
Good to hear. Good to hear there, because that's a tough one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're next, actually. Yours is up next. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. It's we got 2 left, guys. It's Eduardo Rodriguez versus Severino here, and I added this one, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because this is a Red Sox versus the Yankee guy, and Eduardo Rodriguez, you're going to be a homer, Mo, and all this stuff, but I love both these guys. Okay, this is no, a lot of these guys we have out there are buy low guys, but we wanted this to be sort of a I wanted to add this one in because I think it's really close for the rest of the season. Their age is close. They both teams need them to be the guy. Eduardo Rodriguez has been incredible this year for us. 3.10 ERA, 3.34 FIP, about 10 Ks per nine. That's come down a little bit in May, but the walks have also come down in May. He's not walking as many guys. He's not letting a ton of homers up, and it's just been really, really positive stuff. And he's been really fun to watch. And if you look at his game log, he's had once now. The issue with him is he throws a lot of pitches. And at Oakland, when we needed the win, he went 8 innings, and he was great. But every other start, he hasn't gone anything less than 5 innings, but he also hasn't anything gone more than 6. He's only let up 4 runs in one start, and every other start, it's been 3 or less. So that's huge, quality start territory, and that's really what we're looking for. I'd like him to go, more than 6 at times. I really would. Sometimes it's impossible, but he's been incredible. I like him a lot. Severino, he's kind of come back to earth a little bit in May. I'm not going to go too crazy over it. The homers are an issue for him. That's something to watch, especially in Yankee Stadium with the short porch. This is really a close one, and I want you to sort of break the tie, but call me a homer if you want. And I know Yankees fans, if they do listen, they're going to do it. But I just think that Rodriguez has, even though his track record isn't great, I think he's got a little bit more potentially. The 2015 in his rookie year with the 3.85 ERA, and that was pretty good. And that was what we were kind of looking for from him. Last season was a setback, obviously, but I take Erod the rest of the way. I really think he's kind of found it and came into his own a little bit. Severino's still going to be good, but the home run issue scares me, especially in that park. And he's kind of come back to earth a little bit in May. Bubba, I don't know what you think about these two, but I think it's close. I like both of them, but I go with Erod overall.
Yeah, it's very, very close. Severino, great K stuff. He was filthy in all of April. Couple tough hiccups lately. He's going to have some, especially pitching in Yankee Stadium. He's young. You have to love that his walks are down this year, and like I said, the Ks are up. Still giving up the long ball, which is always a concern. But hey, maybe this is a mini Michael Pineda, and this is what you're going to get. You look at his FIP and an XFIP; they're great. I have nothing against Severino. I also want to preface that Mo and I never talk about who we're taking on any of these things we ever do on this show. And we always joke afterwards that we agree way too goddamn often. But I have to side with him again because I was over the moon for Eduardo Rodriguez coming into the year. And to watch him kind of scuffle a bit out the gate was kind of rough. But lately he's looking like Erod. The Erod we thought he'd be, the way he finished last year. Over 10 Ks per nine, like you said, the walks are still up, but that was a problem last year. We got to get that down. But less than a homer per nine, which is awesome. Now his FIP and his XFIP go in the opposite direction that Severino's. So if you whatever you believe in. But to not babble on too much longer than I already am, I like Erod. I like him in his ballpark, given he's got the monster there. But yeah, I'm going Erod. It's very close. It is very close. It's not a homer thing on your part. It's very close. I think they're both going to be great in the long run. I could take either of them on my dynasty team in a heartbeat. I think Severino might actually be better once he really just strikeout-wise once he develops, but it also worries me that maybe there's a surgery coming up. So there's a lot of things to look at, but I go Erod. Last but not least, we go from 2 young studs to 2 former studs trying to find it all over again. Jose Quintana, we've mentioned him many, many times. He's off to a rough start, given he's pitched better lately, but still 3.92 ERA, FIP 3.85, XFIP of 4.58, only a ground ball rate of 38.4, which is about his norm, but striking out a little over 8, but he's walking almost 4 batters per 9. Very I'd say unquintana-like, almost doubled last year's numbers. But the BABIP's down. All the peripherals scream okay, except for that xFIP number there. That's a bit scary. The ballpark's not the best ballpark to pitch in, especially, you know, when the wind's blowing the way it can there. He's actually getting run support this year, which is a little different. So it's crazy watching how much he struggled compared to how dominant he was last year. Now, to the other side of Chicago, Jake Arrieta has been a disaster. 4.80 ERA, 3.92 FIP, 3.76 xFIP. So they're calling for regression. But if preseason-wise you were talking those numbers, you probably wouldn't be that excited about him for where you had to draft him. Almost 10 Ks per nine, 2.5 walks per nine. Home run to fly ball of 14.3%, giving up almost a homer, 1.5 homers per nine. It's been a rough go for him. Given his BABIP's 345, that'll regress to the norm of around 3 most likely. His velocity's down, and it's down quite a bit from the norm velocity drop, and that's the biggest concern for me. Now maybe he's doing the Greinke, and we just didn't notice it, and Greinke figured out how to work with it better because we were all against it, Greinke, and he has been amazing this year. Seems to have looked a little better his last few starts. He still gives up too many home runs, but he hasn't been getting like blasted. So maybe, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws with Arrieta because I like the guy. He just looks so bad. I got to go Quintana on this one just because overall I think he can control things more. But what are your thoughts on Quintana versus Arrieta?
I'm in agreement. I'd go Quintana. I'm not going to ramble too much on it. I think when we talked about him in April in one of our early podcasts, we kind of said, you know, maybe it's in his head, you know, being kind of rumored in the trade talks. I just think he's more consistent. I don't think the walks. I think the walks will be down. I mean, this is the most he's walked, you know, in a while. But he's had a tremendous May. You know, again, he's, you know, the Ks are up a little bit. Walks are up as well, like I said. But I just think he's going to figure it out. And that the Arrieta, I mean, what a season to have your velocity come down. I mean, I hope for his sake he's not hurt because he's in a contract year, and he's talked about plenty of times that he wants a big contract. So I know there's going to be a lot of articles written about him in terms of what's going on, his hard hit percentage. He does, you know, the rest of the season with that contract coming up for him. He had a nice start against Milwaukee the last time out, 6 innings, no earned runs, 6 Ks. So that's positive. You know, next start will be in a couple of days. But yeah, I go Quintana, and I'm not sure it'll be close, to be honest with you. I'm just really scared about that velocity dip.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Did not see that coming at all. I wasn't big on him coming into the year fantasy-wise. I only have him, I think, in one league, besides my dynasty league, one redraft league, just because he kept falling because no one wanted to touch him. Eventually, it became value, so I just grabbed him. But, yeah, that value is not there right now. I had a couple other things, but we're running long, so I'll save those for next week. Anything else you got, Mo?
Nope, a lot to talk about today, and it's gonna be a lot to talk about, you know, coming up in the next few weeks with the draft and a few other things.
Yeah, and like I said with the prospect section, it kind of goes for any section. If you guys have a baseball topic, players, whatever, fantasy-wise, real life, anything you guys want us to talk about, let us know. We're baseball guys, just want to talk baseball. So hit us up. Let us know what you guys want to listen to. Thanks for following and all the good stuff on the handle. Since we've been talking, there have been like 1,000 home runs. About 5 guys have double donged already. So yeah, we got some work to do on the handle. So with that being said, this was Around the Bases episode 13. Mo, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.